Tonight, I'm going to tell you something that might shake the very foundations of what you think you know. Not just about history, but about yourself. What if I told you that the story of humanity didn't begin with primitive cave dwellers slowly evolving into modern man? What if the origin of human life as we know it was never accidental but engineered? Not by nature, not by chance, but by gods from the stars. And what if those gods never truly left? Part 1. Echoes from the Stars, the Hidden Architects of Humanity. This isn't a fairy tale or the plot of a science fiction movie. This is the thread of a forgotten truth, one that's been deliberately buried under sand, stone, and scripture. A truth preserved not in the textbooks but in ancient tablets, whispered legends, and the code written deep within our very DNA. You see, long before recorded history, Earth was visited, not by explorers with telescopes and cameras, but by powerful beings from distant star systems. These were the first architects of civilization, the original teachers of humanity, and the manipulators of our genes. You know them by many names, though the stories have changed over time. Some called them gods, others referred to them as angels. But the oldest name, the truest name, is the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki didn't come to Earth to observe. They came with purpose, with knowledge, with power that would appear magical to early humans. But what they brought was far more complex than mere miracles. It was a blueprint, a design for what humanity could become, or what it could be controlled to remain. Let's start at the edge of memory before civilization rose from the dust. According to the most ancient Sumerian texts, Earth was not the first home of intelligent life. The Anunnaki hailed from a mysterious planet known as Nibiru, a rogue celestial body that moves through our solar system in an immense elliptical orbit. Every 3,600 years, Nibiru's path brings it close to Earth, triggering dramatic cosmic and geological events. But thousands of years ago, long before our ancestors etched the first symbol into clay, a crisis struck Nibiru. Its atmosphere was failing, and the only known remedy was monatomic gold, a rare substance believed to stabilize planetary conditions and enhance spiritual awareness. And Earth, they discovered, was rich in it. It was desperation that drove them here. But what followed was far more than mere resource extraction. The first Anunnaki being to arrive was not part of a coordinated mission but an exile. His name was Alalu, a disgraced ruler who fled Nibiru after losing a power struggle. He crash-landed on Earth somewhere near the fertile lands of ancient Mesopotamia, the region later mythologized as Eden. Alalu's discovery changed everything. Earth wasn't just habitable, it was a gold mine, literally. And so he sent a transmission back to Nibiru, not a cry for help but an offer. I have found what we need. The Anunnaki High Council responded swiftly. A new expedition was formed, led by Enki, one of the sons of the supreme ruler Anu. Enki wasn't just a scientist, he was a master geneticist, an architect of life. Alongside his team, Enki descended to Earth, not just to gather gold, but to establish a permanent presence. They built their first city in the southern region of Mesopotamia and named it Eridu, home in the faraway. The construction of Eridu wasn't a slow human endeavor. It was done in mere days using technology far beyond our understanding even now. Tools that could shape stone with the precision of lasers, devices that manipulated matter at the molecular level. Within 6 days, the city stood. On the 7th, the Anunnaki rested. Sound familiar? That parallel between ancient text and religious scripture is not accidental. The echoes of these events ripple through nearly every spiritual tradition on Earth. The biblical creation story, the tale of the Garden of Eden, the myths of gods descending from the heavens. These aren't just metaphors. They're fragmented memories, filtered through millennia and altered by those who wish to obscure the truth. But let's go deeper. At first, the Anunnaki themselves labored to extract the precious gold from Earth's mines. But their patience wore thin. The work was grueling, and the lower-ranked Anunnaki, known as the Agigi, began to rebel. They refused to continue the back-breaking labor, leading to a crisis that nearly tore the mission apart. It was then that a dangerous idea was proposed. What if a new being could be created? One intelligent enough to take over the work, yet docile enough to be controlled. The concept was simple. The execution was revolutionary. Enki, together with the goddess and geneticist Ninma, began experimenting with the genetic material of local primates, hominids native to Earth. They spliced it with their own DNA, refining the process until they created the first prototype of modern man. The result was Adamu, the ancestor of Homo sapiens, and thus humanity was born, not from evolution alone, but through deliberate manipulation. Adamu and his companion, later called Tiamat, were not the result of random chance. They were engineered, crafted in a region known as Eden, which in the ancient tongue of the Sumerians meant enclosed garden. Their sole purpose was to serve, to obey, to work. But Enki saw something different in these creations. He saw potential. He didn't view them as tools, he saw them as his children, and so he did something that would alter the course of history forever. In defiance of the Anunnaki High Council and his brother Enlil, who oversaw the operations on Earth with authoritarian precision, Enki secretly gifted humanity the MEs, sacred codes of knowledge and wisdom. He gave them the spark of self-awareness, the seed of curiosity, and the capacity for higher consciousness. And that, my friend, is where the true war began. Because Enlil saw this act not as compassion, but as betrayal. To him, humans were nothing more than property, tools of the gods, and now they were questioning, thinking, and evolving. So Enlil acted swiftly. Humanity was expelled from Eden, not as a punishment for sin, but as a tactic of control. The fall of man wasn't about morality, it was about power. The division between Enki and Enlil would become one of the most important and most misunderstood conflicts in human history. The duality of gods in so many religious texts, the loving creator and the wrathful destroyer, are not two aspects of one deity. They are two beings, two brothers, two opposing visions for the fate of mankind. As humanity multiplied and spread, the Anunnaki began to establish powerful civilizations. They taught their creations agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and metallurgy. Not out of kindness, but necessity. A more advanced workforce could serve them better. They built massive cities, pyramids, and ziggurats, structures so advanced that modern engineers still marvel at them. They didn't need cranes or pulleys. They used anti-gravity technology, sound frequencies to lift stone, and crystal-based tools that could reshape matter as if it were clay. But over time, something extraordinary happened. Humans began to evolve beyond their programming. They formed communities, cultures, and spiritual practices. They began to interpret the presence of the Anunnaki not as overlords but as divine beings. They were worshipped, feared, and loved, and the lines between mythology and reality began to blur. This deification both intrigued and alarmed the Anunnaki. Some embraced it, others recoiled. But the most dangerous development was yet to come. Not all Anunnaki were content with observing from a distance. A group known as the Watchers, lower-ranking Anunnaki stationed in remote outposts, began to interact with humans in ways that violated direct orders. They took human women as wives. They taught forbidden knowledge, alchemy, sorcery, and the manipulation of elements. The result of these unions were beings unlike anything the world had ever seen. The Nephilim, giants, hybrids, part human, part god. They were powerful, insatiable, and often uncontrollable. The legends of cyclopean giants, of beings with supernatural strength and terrifying intellect, all stem from this ancient truth. The Nephilim were not myths. They were genetic anomalies, proof that the line between creator and creation had been crossed. Their existence threw Earth into chaos. They dominated early human societies, demanding worship and tribute. They consumed resources at an unsustainable rate and performed experiments that disrupted the natural balance of life on Earth. Enlil, ever the enforcer of order, saw only one solution: eradication. And so the High Council of the Anunnaki made a fateful decision. A great flood would be unleashed. A cataclysm designed not only to reset the planet, but also to wipe clean the genetic corruption caused by the Watchers and their offspring. The flood wasn't divine punishment, it was population control, a reset button pressed by the gods themselves. But not all agreed. Enki, once again moved by compassion, or perhaps a deeper understanding of human potential, chose to intervene. He selected a man named Ziusudra, known in later traditions as Noah. Enki warned him of the coming deluge and instructed him to build a vessel that could preserve not just life, but knowledge. This secret act of defiance would ensure that humanity did not vanish entirely. The flood came. It reshaped the earth, drowned civilizations, and buried untold records beneath layers of sediment. But Ziusudra and his family survived, and with them, the spark of humanity endured. What followed was a slow, painful recovery. The world after the flood was not the same. The Anunnaki retreated. Their direct involvement lessened, but their legacy remained. Survivors passed down stories of the gods who walked among them, of flying ships, glowing weapons, and cities that reached toward the stars. Over time, these stories became myths, then religions, and finally whispers of a forgotten truth. But the bloodlines of the Anunnaki did not disappear. They were preserved in the ruling classes of post-flood civilizations, priests, kings, and sages. Their extraordinary lifespans and knowledge elevated them to godlike status. These were the semi-divine figures who built the first empires after the deluge, and while most of humanity forgot, the descendants of the gods remembered. They guarded the ancient knowledge, hidden in coded texts and sacred rituals. Some passed it down through secret societies. Others wielded it to shape empires, economies, and belief systems. And slowly, the influence of the Anunnaki shifted, from overt rule to subtle control. But make no mistake, their fingerprints are everywhere, in the megaliths that defy gravity and logic, in the ancient texts that speak of gods descending from the heavens, in the duality of religious figures who love one moment and punish the next, and perhaps in our very genes, silent witnesses to a story far older than we've been led to believe. This, my friend, is only the beginning, because if the Anunnaki came once, they can come again, and some believe they never truly left. Part 2. Return of the Gods, Secrets Buried in Our DNA. Now that you've seen how the Great Flood reshaped the Earth and nearly wiped out everything humanity had become, let's step into what came after, the part of the story that was quietly passed down in secret teachings, hidden from the masses, and preserved only by those who knew the truth was too dangerous to share openly. Because after the flood, the Earth didn't just begin again. It was reforged by the very same hands that had created it. The Anunnaki may have withdrawn their physical presence from many regions of the planet, but their influence ran even deeper than before. Their work wasn't over. If anything, it had just entered a new phase, one of quiet control. The few humans who survived carried with them more than just stories. They carried fragments of memory, glimpses of technologies, beings of light, and ancient cities now lost to the sea. These survivors became the founders of new civilizations, Egypt, Sumer, and the Indus Valley. But what most never realized was that their leaders, their kings and priests, were chosen not because of merit, but because of blood. The bloodlines of the Anunnaki didn't vanish with the flood. They were carefully protected, hidden in plain sight, and those who carried the divine gene were elevated above the rest. Their access to ancient knowledge gave them power that shaped nations, built empires, and wrote the next chapters of human history from behind veils and thrones. You might be wondering what happened to the Watchers, the ones whose rebellion had brought on such devastation. According to texts like the Book of Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were imprisoned beneath the earth, bound in chains, and sealed away from the surface for 70 generations. But their legacy lived on through the Nephilim, whose bloodlines merged with humanity's, creating lineages both revered and feared. Some of these lineages claimed divine right to rule. Others went into hiding, forming secret orders, preserving the ancient knowledge that had nearly been lost forever. From the pharaohs of Egypt to the mysterious priesthoods of Babylon, from the hidden chambers beneath the Vatican to the symbols etched into the dollar bill, these remnants of Anunnaki influence have shaped our world in ways most cannot see. And yet their presence wasn't always hidden. Across the globe, megalithic structures stand as impossible testaments to a forgotten era. Temples, pyramids, monoliths, and entire cities built with technology that should not have existed. In Baalbek, Lebanon, stones weighing hundreds of tons are stacked with such precision that even modern machinery would struggle to replicate it. In Peru and Bolivia, stone walls are carved with such complexity and smoothness that they resemble melted wax frozen in time. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza continues to baffle engineers, not just for its scale, but for its mathematical precision and unknown energy properties. These structures were not made by primitive humans with ropes and copper tools. They were made with knowledge, Anunnaki knowledge, knowledge of resonance, vibration, gravitational manipulation, and energy frequencies that we are only beginning to rediscover. But it wasn't just about architecture. The Anunnaki encoded their wisdom in star maps, calendars, sacred geometry, and even music. They understood the frequencies of life itself, the vibrational patterns that govern consciousness and matter, and they passed this knowledge down, quietly, carefully, through mystery schools, oral traditions, and eventually through secret societies that formed the backbone of our modern institutions. And now, we reach the most uncomfortable question of all. Are the Anunnaki still influencing us? To answer that, we need to look not to the skies, but within ourselves. Deep within your genetic code lies a mystery. Scientists call it junk DNA, a term used to describe the vast portions of our genome whose purpose they don't understand. But what if that junk is a legacy, a dormant code left by our creators? What if it holds the keys to psychic abilities, advanced cognition, and even interdimensional perception? Some believe the divine spark that Enki secretly gifted us, the upgrade that broke us free from mere servitude, is still awakening, that we are in the midst of an evolutionary leap guided not by natural selection but by design. And as more people awaken to their intuitive gifts, their ability to perceive energy, synchronicity, and hidden truth, it's clear something is shifting. We're not who we used to be, and yet we are being watched. There are those who believe that the Anunnaki have remained in the background of our civilization, not as visible rulers but as influencers from behind the veil, that they have seeded bloodlines with specific genetic traits to hold positions of power, that the global elite, the dynasties that never seem to fall, and the families with wealth and influence spanning centuries are the direct descendants of these ancient gods. It might sound far-fetched, until you realize how consistently these families intermarry, how tightly they control global systems, finance, religion, politics, and education, and how many of their symbols trace back to Sumer, Egypt, and Babylon. Serpents, wings, suns, all-seeing eyes. These aren't coincidences, they are signatures. But why? Why would the Anunnaki want to remain involved? The answer may lie in Nibiru. According to the ancient texts, Nibiru's orbit brings it back into the inner solar system every 3,600 years. Each time it returns, it leaves a wake of transformation, sometimes chaos, sometimes evolution, and some believe its return is near, that the signs in our sky, the shifts in our climate, and the disruptions in our global systems are all heralds of a new cycle, a return. But this time, humanity is different. This time, we are not the primitive creatures we once were. We have our own technology, our own understanding, however limited, of energy and matter. We have weapons that can alter the very fabric of life. And we have something else, consciousness. That's what this is really about. The Anunnaki didn't just create humans to dig holes. They created us to see how far consciousness could evolve under pressure, to see what we'd become when given just enough light to grow but enough shadow to struggle. It's been an experiment in duality, order and chaos, control and rebellion, obedience and awakening. And now we're approaching the inflection point. The war between Enki and Enlil never truly ended. It just changed forms. It became a war of ideologies, fought through systems, education, religion, and belief. Enki's vision was always one of freedom, growth, and divine awakening. Enlil's vision was control, hierarchy, obedience. Which one are we living in now? Every time you're told you're not enough, not powerful, not capable, that's Enlil's system speaking. Every time you're discouraged from seeking inner truth and told to trust only external authority, that's the old program running. But when you feel something more stirring in you, when you question the rules, when you awaken to the magic of synchronicity, when you feel the pull toward something higher, that's the spark of Enki's rebellion still alive within you. It's not a war of ships and fire anymore. It's a war of perception. And that's why uncovering this truth matters. Because once you remember who you are, what you are, those ancient chains start to break. You're not just human. You're not just flesh and blood. You are part of a much greater design, a lineage that spans planets and stars, a being crafted with intention, gifted with a spark of the divine, and capable of far more than you've been told. But the question now is, are we ready? Because if Nibiru returns, if the Anunnaki make themselves known again, will we stand in awe as their servants, or will we meet them as equals? Have we learned enough to reclaim our place in the cosmic family? Or will we fall once again into the same patterns, worship, obedience, war? The decision may not be theirs to make this time. It may be ours, and the signs are everywhere. People around the world are waking up, questioning, seeking, remembering, discovering hidden texts, sacred geometries, and forgotten technologies, aligning with natural cycles, solar events, and galactic alignments. It's happening. The veils are thinning. And what's coming next may change everything. Because if the Anunnaki return or reveal they've been here all along, it will mean the greatest rewrite of history the world has ever known. Everything from our science to our religion to our sense of identity will have to be reevaluated. The world won't end. But the old version of it will, and something new will begin. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to be blind. That was the program. The real you, the ancient, luminous, sovereign you, has been waiting beneath the surface for this very moment in time. The Anunnaki may have sparked the flame, but we are the ones who decide what to do with it. Maybe the final chapter isn't written by the gods at all. Maybe it's written by us, and maybe, just maybe, that was the plan all along. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time if you are still with me, and if you would like, please think about subscribing to our channel. You may then receive updates on new videos that will provide you with additional knowledge, manifestations, philosophy, and personal development ideas. Your thoughts and opinions regarding this video would be much appreciated. Your contribution stimulates our cosmic research, and we are incredibly appreciative of your being here. And never forget that we are always here for you and wish you the best possible life filled with success and happiness. I hope you have an amazing day. If you have watched until the end, please respond with MMM, Master Motivational Mindset, so we can connect.